This guide will walk you through each of the mechanics, as well as my recommended strategies for resolving the battle with Brute Bomber, the third turn of the Arcadion Light Heavyweight Savage Raid series. There will be a mixture of both gameplay footage and strat diagrams that should help you easily understand what's going on for all of the major challenges in the fight, no matter what your learning style is. Please bear in mind that this video was made week 1 using week 1 strats. It's possible that certain resolutions will become more refined over time, and in those cases I will release updated videos for individual mechanics and link them in the description. As a final note before we begin, there is a raid plan in the description with full strat parity to this video. Let's get into it. Brute Bomber opens up the fight with Brutal Impact, which is a multi-hit raid damage before immediately going into Knuckle Sandwich, a multi-hit tank buster share which both tanks will take. Both the raid wide and the buster will hit 4 times. Then he will cast either Octuple Lariat or Quadruple Lariat. For reference, the Octuple means that it will be a spread, and the Quadruple means that it will be a pairs. If its pairs support, rotate 1 position clockwise to their DPS partner. Notice that the pair cleaves are smaller than the spread cleaves, so be right on top of each other. The Lariat will either be an in or an out based on the boss hands. If the hands are engulfed in flame or glowing, which will happen later in the fight, you want to be close, and if they aren't, you need to move out. This first one is always out. This is followed by an Octoboom dive or a Quadraboom dive. This mechanic also morphs based on whether the boss's hands are glowing or not. If they are not, it is a proximity damage from the side of the arena the boss is facing, and if they are, it's a knockback from that same point. This one will always be a proximity damage. Once more, Octoboom is spread and Quadraboom is pairs. Melee and tanks can gap closer back in as soon as the proximity damage is over, and either pair up like this, or for spread you can have full uptime by putting 1 tank directly underneath the boss. You'll be pairing up this way to ensure full uptime. Another Brutal Impact follows, and then Brute Bomber will cast Barbarous Barrage, spawning 6 knockback towers on the arena's edges in 2 lines of 3. The middle towers will go off first, then the corner ones, and then the newly spawned center one, and the boss will do a huge murderous mist cleave which you'll need to be behind him to avoid. You can tell how many players need to be in the towers by the number of orbs floating around them. 2 for the corner towers, 4 for the middle line towers, and 8 for the tower in the center of the arena. Split the party into 2 4-player groups, ranged and healers together, and tanks and melee together. The melee group goes into the center tower on the north or west line, the ranged go into the tower on the south or east line. Pair up within the tower as shown in the diagram with a support and a DPS together, and get knocked into the corners in your pairs looking left and right. The left group or group 1 looks and gets knocked to their left, and group 2 or right group gets knocked to their right. Then from the corner towers you will get knocked as pairs into the middle, and then get knocked from middle to behind the boss to avoid the murderous mist. Then your enemy will use Doping Draught and gain a stack, enhancing his abilities for the next phase of the fight. Now he will do the Glowy Hands Quadruple or Octuple Lariat, so in and pairs or spread, followed by the glowy variant of Quadraboom or Octoboom dive, so knockback and either pairs or spread. Brutal Impact and Knuckle Sandwich will come next. There is an important note that with each stack of Doping Draught that the boss takes, it will increase the number of hits that both of these attacks do by 2, so now he is doing 6 hits on each of these. After this, Brute Bomber will cast Tag Team, spawning 2 clones of himself on adjacent walls on the arena, and then Chain Deathmatch, applying a chain that links you to 1 of the clones. This is a solo mechanic, so don't look at anyone else. Both adds will begin to channel Lariat combo, the same slightly more than half room cleaves that you know from normal mode, and your aim is to be hit by the clone from the ad you're chained to and avoid the other one. This cleanses your debuff, and then you can avoid the second attack incoming from both ads. The second attacks are always opposite to the first. Try to make sure if you're a tank you stay in max melee for your first safe spot so you don't risk dragging the boss and making your melee cry. There's a rule that can help with finding the second safe spot easily if you're struggling to. You don't need to follow this, but it can help. Check which corner for the first safe spot is being hit by both attacks at once. This is the second safe spot. So go to your first spot, see where both are going to hit, and then go there for your second spot. After this comes a random Quadruple or Octuple Lariat, and another Brutal Impact raid-wide. Final Fusedown is next, which will spawn a number of bombs across the arena with either short or long fuses, as well as putting fuses onto players. 4 players will get short fuses and 4 will get long fuses. This is role based, so all DPS will get the same and all supports will get the same. The bomb patterns on the floor will always be the same, with 3 long fuses collected together in one corner and 1 long fuse in the opposite corner. The short bombs and short fuse players will go off at the same time, so your aim is to spread those out without hitting any long fuse players. Then afterwards the long fuses and long bombs will all go off at the same time too. Using supports as short fuses for an example here, you can spread like this. H2 will go to the long solo fuse, H1 will go to the far bomb on the larger safe spot, and the 2 tanks will go to the bombs in melee range. The long fuse players go onto the boss, making sure not to be directly in the center of the room because the explosion just barely covers it. Then once the bombs explode, the players that just did their mechanic collect onto the boss, and the long fuses go out to the second safe spots. If it's DPS short fuses, you just swap H1 with R1 and so on for your positions like in these images. This is followed by a random Octoboom or Quadraboom dive, and then Fusefield will spawn, giving all players a Bombarian debuff of 2 different timers. 4 players get each timer, so it is a role based, so supports will get 1 and DPS will get the other. You can see the timers in the strat image. 8 fuses will spawn from the boss on the floor, 4 long and 4 short, and the arena under his hitbox will become a death zone. Standing on a fuse with the debuff will cleanse your debuff and explode for big raid damage and a 2-second vuln. You need to pop the fuses one by one, with the short debuffs taking the short fuses and the long debuffs taking the long fuses, and get rid of all of them before they expire. To assign who goes where, you can simply use Snake Prio, looking clockwise from north and taking whichever fuse corresponds to your position. You can see on the image the order looking clockwise. They will be popped in that same order, so in this example of supports first, tanks will pop, then healers, then melee, then ranged. Make sure to wait for heals in between. If you want clear times, you can pop them when your timer is at 20, 15, 10, and 5 for first, second, third, and fourth in your priority. A knuckle sandwich follows this, and then the boss will take a second doping draft, which as a byproduct increases the raid wides and busters to 8 hits. Brute Bomber will then cast either Quadraboom or Octoboom Bombarian Special, which will open with him doing 5 raid wide damages. Then you need to go out, and then you need to go back in, and then there will be a knockback from the center of the room as he leaves the arena to belly flop you. Get knocked into the corners in the same pairs you took the initial Lariats in, regardless of if pairs or spread, and then the pairs or spread circular AoEs will go off after this, so spread into your positions as necessary. Fuses of Fury follows this, and another tag team. The Fuses of Fury are in the exact same configuration as before, and you can just avoid the AoEs. This time with the tag team and team deathmatch that follows, however, you will be tethered twice. Once to one of the clones on the wall, and another time to the boss himself. Remember who you're tethered to and avoid the bombs, and then the ads will begin their Lariat combo dashes and the boss will channel Murderous Mist. Make sure you get hit by both the boss Murderous Mist and your chained ad, and avoid the other, and then remember to dodge the second Lariats in the same way you did before. Note that you get a poison here that needs to be healed. This is followed by a random Quadraboom or Octoboom dive, an 8-hit Brutal Impact, and an 8-hit Knuckle Sandwich. Fuse or Foe is next, attaching a fuse to each player, 4 longs and 4 shorts, and once more this is roll based, and then the boss will begin to channel Infernal Spin, which is a rotating cleave starting from a cardinal direction, as well as telegraphing 2 large circle AoEs on opposite intercardinals. Don't even look at your fuse honestly, instead just set up behind the rotational direction of the cone AoE and follow it. I'm going to bring up these images. This is true north, so you can just look for your marker. You want to head towards your position, just making sure not to go back on yourself in doing so in order to avoid the rotating cleave, because it does 1 full rotation. The circle AoEs will expand, avoid them and get into your spot, and dodge the AoEs like this. The fuses will explode, and the mechanic is resolved. Bear in mind that because those 2 circular AoEs can spawn on any 2 opposite diagonals, there's technically 2 patterns to this, but your resolution is the exact same. The AoEs will just be very slightly different to one another. You'll just either take a step in or a step out as needed. Another random Octuple or Quadruple Lariat follows, then a Brutal Impact, and another Barbarous Barrage, which you will deal with in exactly the same way as the first one. The only difference is that instead of shooting his Poison Mist, Brute Bomber will use a Lariat combo dive, so get knocked diagonally to the safe side from the final middle tower, and then avoid the follow-up. A tank buster comes after this, and then he will take a third and final doping draft and begin his enrage sequence. This is Special Bombarian Special, which follows the format of the previous Bombarian Special, except the boss becomes untargetable and leaves instead of doing the knockback, and then insta-kills the raid. Hopefully this video should give you all the information you need to push for your clear. If you have any additional questions, please do let me know in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.